Alex, what made you want to open a game bar in Japan in the first place?
Oh, geez. I was an English teacher for about 8 or 9 years in and around Nagoya, Japan, and I forgot to quit, so I kept doing it. I was coming up on the age of 30, and I realized I was still sort of making the same money and doing the same thing I had when I came to Japan when I was 22. And I'm like, that's not good. And around that time, I had been visiting a video game bar in a nearby town, the town of Ichinomiya. The bar is called Genesis, a very great place. And I'm like, I just want to do that. Like, that seems like fun. This guy has a lot of fun. I have fun when I hang out there. It seems like a nice place for people to go. So I started saving money, and every time I visited home, I would mail myself a box of games until it was all over here. And that's the short version.
How easy is the process of opening a game bar in Japan, especially as a foreigner?
Oh, this has a lot of different answers because there's so many different angles to approach a business from. It's in terms of legality, you don't need any kind of special liquor license in Japan for a bar in particular. You just have to pass a basic health and safety training course, and that's it. However, in terms of something like getting a visa, obviously you can't renew your teacher's visa once you start working in a bar full time. That's a little more difficult. It's easier if you're married because you don't have to worry about that. But the business visa, among other things, requires you to prove to the government that you have 5 million yen in your bank account. Which, guess what? I didn't. Sorry. But what I and a bunch of other people do is you borrow money from people, you put it in your bank account, you make a copy of your bank book, you give the money back to your friends, everybody's happy. In terms of finding real estate, that proved to be a little bit difficult because the Japanese real estate agency didn't really know what to do with me. They were showing me all of these dilapidated snack bars that were not what I was looking for. And I lucked into this place. The guy was almost reluctant to show me because he thought I turned down the first 20. Why would I like this one? I'm like, no, this is great. It's in a basement. It's like you're hanging out in a friend's basement playing games. It's got shelves on the wall. It's already got the bar on the counter, which saved me 100,000 yen. All I had to do was clean it up, paint it, hire a company to do some remodeling, which was also expensive and one of the harder parts of the process. And then it was good to go. So yeah, I would say as a foreigner opening a physical location, a business in Japan, it's not substantially any harder than it is in your own country. It's just it's the standard gaijin stuff that we have to deal with anyway.
So why did they arrest people for copyright infringement versus a more mild response like sending them a subpoena in the mail regarding the issues with copyrights for game bars?
It's hard for me to really talk about exactly what's going on because I'm not completely sure. Because news outlets are saying one thing, people are saying another thing. What my understanding of the situation is that, according to the law, it is illegal to display copyrighted images from video game software on a TV or monitor in a public place or a place of business. That's my understanding. And I guess these people have just been kind of, they knew, they got the warnings, they knew what they were doing was illegal, and they kept doing it. And it seems that a lot of this is Nintendo pushing the ACCS to make these arrests. The Association for the Copyright of Computer Software is the government branch under the Ministry of Education that's doing all this shit, and it's Nintendo who's kind of prodding them to do it, because Nintendo is like an 85-year-old cranky old man who's very terrified of his copyrights, and oh no, kids are going to take my copyrights. And it's like, you remember when Persona 5 came out and you could stream about 90 seconds of it before the PlayStation stopped you from streaming it? Nintendo's whole mindset is basically that. Like, nobody can see any of this. It would damage our brand somehow. So yeah, I'll go back to the very beginning. Like in 2011, the ACCS sent out a letter to video game bars saying, hey, guess what? You can't have these games. It's illegal. Everybody ignored it, and people, went about their business. Side note, people ignored it because copyright law is not really effectively enforced in Japan until now. You can go to any bar or restaurant or cafe. They're going to be showing movies, TV, sporting events, music concerts, and they don't have the rights for those. They are breaking the law. Cops are not breaking down Komeda Coffee and arresting a dude because they're showing a variety show on TV. It's the thing that nobody cares about. Suddenly the government cares about enforcing copyright because Nintendo, has a bee in their bonnet, and everybody has to suffer for it.
So when we're talking about arrested, are we actually talking about suddenly breaking in, nabbed, thrown in the back of a cop car and being taken to the prison or the jail?
Judging by the news articles, that's what it looked like. There were consoles and games laid out on blue tarp like they were bags of heroin. It was surreal. Like, here's a Neo Geo when I'm expecting, a corpse or something. But yeah, it's these guys, from what I know, and I don't know this for sure, it doesn't seem like they got any warning or that they even got the letter. But a friend of mine pointed this out a few weeks ago. The letter itself was not a warning. The letter that they sent out in 2011 was a press release. It was just an announcement to the country. Hey, everybody, this is illegal. They put the same thing on their website. So it's hard to argue, we didn't know. I didn't get a letter, so I didn't know. It doesn't matter. The letter was announcing to the country, hey, guess what? Can't do this. And so some guys got shut down in March, 3 places in Osaka who are all owned by the same big company. And I thought, well, I'm safe because, I'm not a big company. I'm the little guy. They shouldn't care. And then in June, I think June 13th and 14th, when dudes are actually getting straight up arrested, possibly without warning, then I kind of took notice and was like, okay, I need to do something. Because if I get arrested for this, I get deported and I won't see my wife for God knows how long. And that terrified me. So I got rid of the consoles. And so legally, I think I'm in the clear for now because there's no way for me to display copyrighted software images on these TVs.
Have you personally been visited by the police regarding the matter or anyone from the ACCS? No,
as far as I know, they don't know that I exist. I've not received anything from them in the mail. I've not had a visit. I knew this was an issue before I even opened the bar because I'd heard from my friend at Genesis and I'd heard from Matt at Space Station about these letters. So before I even opened, I incorporated my business on paper. My business license says I'm an English conversation bar. I was careful not to mention it too much in Japanese in my advertising. But yeah, as far as I know, I've been flying under their radar, but I have to play it completely safe to be absolutely certain.
How has the matter affected your business then?
I am very fortunate in that I have a large portion of my clientele still come here to just hang out and talk about games or talk about whatever, talk about their life in Japan. And we're friends and we hang out. And I'm glad that they still come here. They are keeping me afloat. However, I am sorely lacking that salaryman dollar that I needed. Even on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, which are typically slow nights, I could get a group of 4, 5, 6 salarymen who come in and, yeah, they're going to play Smash Brothers for 4 hours on the N64 or Mario Party or Mario Kart. I would say it's about 50-50. Half of my income was probably from Japanese salarymen who came just to play games and socialize with their coworkers, and the other half is just the regulars who come for the atmosphere and to hang out and to talk to their friends.
So speaking from like an American or Western perspective on copyright law, why does the Japanese government go after the bars for copyright infringement rather than the actual copyright holders?
I think the answer to that is just, I think there's 2 answers. The first is there's so many companies that Japan wants to enforce the law, and there's just too many companies for that to be done on their own feasibly. So I think they established the ACCS, and it's gone through a name change or two. I think it started in the 80s or 90s, and I think in the mid or late 90s they converted to the ACCS, and they represent all these different companies. I think because the government can't count on these companies individually to cover their own things, And mostly B, it's money. The government wants money. It's all they've ever wanted, ever. The ACCS demands membership fees it's a minimum 200,000 yen a year fee per company. It's not on a personal basis, but yeah, if you're a content creator and you make an indie game, you're gonna have to shell out $2,000 a year to make sure that your copyright is safe. And that's for a small company. The fees go all the way up to, I think, about 500,000 yen for the larger companies. So that's what like Nintendo and Sony are paying, and that's not a lot for them. But yeah, I think it's about money. And in this case, Nintendo is pressuring the government to be more active about it. And the government's like, hey, you're paying this exorbitant membership fee. Yeah, sure, we'll do it. Whatever you want. And that's why the ACCS has kind of stepped up its game in the past 7 or 8 years.
So what about the rumors of game bars in Japan lending customers games? Do you know if there's any truth to that? Likewise, do you know how the rumors got started? And that's if they are rumors.
I don't know how that started. I don't know anything about that. I know that renting games in Japan has been illegal since, I think, 1983, when, guess who? Nintendo stepped in and said, no, we can't have people renting games. And the government said, oh, of course, right away. What was I thinking? So you can't rent games. It's been illegal for 35 years. I don't know what those places were doing, if they were renting games out. I want to be completely legally safe here by saying this. I lend games to my friends. I do not rent games to customers. I will lend a game to a friend, as anybody would. Hey, I finished playing Ace Attorney Gavel Guys. You can borrow it. And I give it to my friend, and he plays it and he gives it back. There's no money involved. It's not done as a business thing. I just do it, because you loan games to friends, and you want to borrow games from friends. It's fun. But yeah, I don't know anything about that. I've never seen places that do that. If they were doing that, it seems like an almost comically boneheaded thing to do, because that's been a very legally clear thing for decades. So I don't know what they were thinking if that was happening.
So I'm noticing that a lot of Japanese-owned gaming bars are choosing to either just close down entirely or ditch their games and their consoles instead of actually fighting the laws and fighting the problem. Why do you think that? Like, do you think that they'll retain their customers? Or how important do you think playing the games is to retaining their regulars as opposed to just chatting and being in a place that celebrates gaming culture?
I think it really depends on the atmosphere and the emphasis that the establishment had on the games. Like this place, for example, I have a pretty heavy emphasis on, you can play games here. Now you can't. So that's kind of hit me business-wise. Like I mentioned earlier, I've probably lost about half my business for the time being. As to why people are just giving up, Japanese places are giving up and getting rid of games, I think, I don't know for sure. My guess is that there's this Japanese mentality of shogunai. It can't be helped. Like, a bad thing is happening. Oh, well, I'm just screwed. And people are kind of reluctant to actually fight back or try to make a difference or change something because they think that they can't. And I'm not saying that's the case for all these places, but I'm saying it's a part of the Japanese mentality that I've seen before. And honestly, I can't blame them when the threat of legal action is over their heads. Like, yeah, you should, yeah, maybe this is at least temporarily, you can give up the games for now. But also, I don't want to believe this, but it's also a possibility. Maybe they talked to a lawyer, a copyright lawyer, and confirmed, oh yeah, none of this is possible anymore. I am personally going to meet with a lawyer next week to discuss these kinds of things. I have a huge list of questions I want to ask, a huge list of contingencies and what else can I possibly do? What's legal? What's not legal? What can I get by with? So, yeah, the places that have kind of given up, it makes me sad to see that happen, but maybe they're doing it for a good reason, or maybe they're just being cautious, which is a good reason. I don't know for sure. It's still, it's hard to get like concrete information in this situation.
Do you think it would be easier to just shut down compared to hiring a lawyer, spending all the money trying to fight this or trying to understand what the problem is, and then it being like a long-term financial issue for you and not really being worth it?
I don't know. I would have to sit down and look at the numbers and see which, this is going to be really expensive. This will also be expensive. I mean, I'm choosing to remain open just without playable games because I'm still paying an obscene amount in rent for this space every month, and I get enough people who still come here that I can probably meet the bare minimum to break even on the business. I'm not turning a profit certainly now, but it's I'm able to stay afloat. But yeah, I want to meet with a lawyer. And hopefully it doesn't come to the circumstance of I need a lawyer to go to court with me. Right now, I'm just consulting a lawyer because I don't know law. I'm not a lawman. And in Japan, the shitty thing about Japanese law is that the government can interpret it in any way that they want. There's not one concrete view of the law. It's however they feel like looking at it on that day. And it depends on who you're talking to and the situation and the phase of the moon. I don't know. So I want to meet with a specialist, a copyright lawyer who specifically knows this branch of Japanese law and who can tell me in very clear terms, you can do this, you can't do this. And if I can have games back, that would be great. I think at the bare minimum, I can have handhelds. It's a personal portable screen. It's your thing. Yeah.
It's hard to imagine Western video game companies supporting such actions. We see much more of a community focus from Western game companies that perhaps they would support the bars if this was an American issue. Why do you think that big Japanese companies, Nintendo, Capcom, Konami, support these actions and are not okay with game bars showing their games?
I think there's a basic difference between Japanese corporations and Western corporations. Whereas Western corporations will make an effort to sort of befriend their customers and try to play nice because they want you to buy their stuff. Hey, we make a thing. Look, we made a funny joke on Twitter. Now buy our thing. Japanese companies are very much seen as blameless, holy things that can just do whatever they want. They don't really care that much about engaging with customers outside of, basic advertisements. But I think that's why a lot of the larger Japanese companies get it into their head that we own these copyrights, and they do. We own these copyrights. We can say when you can see these images, we own your childhood. You are beholden to us. When in people's day-to-day life, that's just not how it is. Nintendo is a thing that for years people just, clueless parents would refer to every video game as Nintendo. Oh, I'm going to buy my son the new Nintendo, holding a Sega Genesis. And companies in Japan don't seem to sort of respect the fact that something that, like Nintendo, that has such a history, has become very much ingrained in the culture. And though it is still a product, it kind of belongs to people as well, because it's part of their childhood, it's part of their growing up. And I'm not saying we shouldn't respect copyright law or we shouldn't, give money for goods and services. I'm just saying Nintendo kind of needs to get on board with the idea that in the long run, it is beneficial for them for places like this to exist because it's promoting video game culture and it's promoting their brand. I have people who come here and they play a game and they say, this game is great, I'm going to go home and buy it. I'm on your side, guys. Trying to get people to play games and buy games and talk about games and embrace gaming culture. And you're actively trying to shut these down as if to say, no, we are the only voice in this video game narrative. We say when you can enjoy this thing and how you can enjoy this thing, when the reality is not so.
So, Alex, how long has your bar actually been in business? And for this whole time, up until this year, was this really a problem that you did worry about?
Critical Hit has been open for almost 4 years. It'll be 4 years in October. This was not an issue that I was worried about. It was something that I knew was a possibility because I'd known about the letters since before I opened, and I was very careful when I launched that I was not too explicit in my advertising about what I do and what this place is. I was pretty calm and confident until March, when places were shut down, and then all of that anxiety just doubled in June when people were arrested.
Why do you think 2018 specifically this year has been the year that the enforcement of the rules are getting stricter?
I don't know. My only guess is that this is, it's Nintendo who's pushing the ACCS primarily to do this, and the Switch has really taken off and become very popular. And I think because of the Switch's popularity, Nintendo has sort of taken a look at itself and been like, yeah, it's we're doing pretty good. It's time that we really start enforcing this stuff. So we can, maintain brand integrity or whatever the old men have convinced themselves that they are protecting. I think it's just Nintendo is doing well. Certainly, they're doing better than when the Wii U was around, and I think that's kind of spurned them to start cracking down on these places.
Do you think this is just an issue with newer titles, such as like Splatoon 2 and Monster Hunter World doing so well for companies in Japan? Would allowing patrons to play older titles and indie games be a step in the right direction or a different direction? I mean, this place has always existed as a retro video game bar. So I tried to only have retro titles, and then somebody said, "Hey, I'm selling my Xbox and 30 games for 5,000 yen. Do you want it?" I said, "Yes, absolutely." And a guy just straight up gave me a PS4 because he was going to buy a Pro. So he's like, "Hey, Alex, I don't need this. You can have it." And my response was, "Buh, buh, 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 buh." So it quickly transformed into all games. But yeah, it is particularly the newer generation that they're cracking down on. But I've seen those crime scene photos, and you can clearly see, like, next to the Switch, hey, there's a copy of Super Adventure Island. So it's like, yeah, we're going to bust you for the new stuff, but while we're in here, we're also going to bust you for the old stuff. And I think they're targeting everything, because Nintendo is still trying to make money off virtual console sales. Even if I don't think that really exists for the Switch yet, but I think it's something they're trying to launch. And I think they're trying to protect their older copyrights as well, because those are potential new sales on the new platform. And even though it's not exactly the same experience as playing it, playing Rockman 2 on a Famicom with an NES pad, they are still very closely trying to safeguard that particular copyright. I think that's why. In regards to handhelds then, and for example, the Switch, how does that work? Can people come to the bar and play their Switch? Are you actively encouraging people, hey, bring your Switch, there's nothing they can do about it, that's your own personal thing?
I'm not encouraging it yet, but I am not stopping it. I had 2 people bring their Switches last night. They just hung out and played some games. And I'm pretty sure handhelds are also safe. Some folks bring their DS or their PSP or their Vita and play games. But again, I cannot speak with 100% certainty that handhelds are also okay. That's another thing I want to ask the lawyer. And I'm 99% sure they're fine, because it's a handheld. Like, no one's getting busted sitting in a train station and playing Monster Hunter. But again, I want to be completely certain about everything before I do anything. And I think the Switch is fine. My only concern about the Switch is the Switch can potentially be connected to a TV, in which case, we're broadcasting those images now. And again, Japan gets to interpret the law in any way that's convenient for them. So by virtue of there being a Switch here, they could conceivably bust me for that, because, oh no, you can hook that up to a TV. It's all about potential and what I have the capability to do. It's people are trying to be very helpful, and I appreciate everybody's input on this, and I've compiled a lot of ideas. But the idea that I get the most is, what if people just bring their own games? Like, that's not the issue. It's the fact that these images are being displayed on a screen in a public place of business. And people have also said, why don't you just keep the machines behind the counter? And, you can hide them. And, like, it doesn't matter. It's like, the way I explained it to a friend was like, if I get stopped by the police and I have, like, a pound of cocaine in a bag, like, I can't argue, well, I wasn't doing the cocaine. You can't bust me for this. It's like, it doesn't matter. I possessed it. It's the same. Nintendo is treating Famicoms like pounds of cocaine. Like, just by having them in conjunction with software, I am liable. And it's bad. It's a bad scene right now.
going back to the, the images on the screen being the copyright infringement problem, how does it work with stuff like YouTube and Twitch and, streaming video game images through those platforms, watching like gaming YouTuber channels or watching Twitch channels and stuff like that? Is that an entirely different thing, or is that still this sort of same gray area?
That's a great question, and that's a question that I have for the lawyer, because I don't know. Because technically, I'm showing a YouTube Let's Play. I'm technically showing those copyrighted images. And again, as the government can interpret the law however they want, a guy could come in and say, you're getting deported because you wanted to watch this dude play Dino Ricky. It's a really bad situation. And I want to ask the lawyer to be completely sure. I feel confident streaming. A lot of my regulars, a lot of my friends, they have Twitch channels, and I will play them at the bar, if they're playing. And I feel kind of okay playing stuff that's being streamed from the PS4 because they're using the official PS4 clients to do that. And that's sort of Sony's tacit admission that, hey, we're letting this guy broadcast these images, so it's okay to display them. I assume. That may not even be legal too. Again, I have to ask the lawyer next week. I have a lot of questions for this man.
What are you doing personally to deal with the issue? Like, you have said that you're getting rid of your consoles, and but you still have all the games in the bar and stuff like that. What are you doing personally from now for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, the first step was get rid of the consoles. That keeps me legally in the clear. Someone also suggested get rid of the TVs, but 2 of them are mounted to the wall. I don't know how to get that one down. And we use this one to watch YouTube and stuff, so I thought it was easier to just get rid of the consoles. But what I'm doing is just, I'm laying low. I went through the bar's Twitter account and Facebook, and I removed any pictures of people playing games to kind of cover my ass legally. I posted a note on the door, which not everybody reads, which basically says, sorry, I can't have games right now. It's posted in Japanese and English, and I still get salarymen come in and sit and order a beer and talk for 15 minutes, and then they're like, hey, we want to play Mario Kart. It's like, dude, it's on the door. I've tried to spread the word by telling people, and then they're telling people, and it's good in the sense that now people understand, and it's bad in the sense that a lot of people are just not coming anymore because I don't have the games. But what I'm doing is getting legal advice, playing it completely legally safe for now, and then once I get legal advice, then I'll decide where to go from there. If I can have games, I'll bring them back. Great. If I can have some games, that's fine. If I can't have any games at all, then I think it's time to sit down and really look at the plan and what's next. Whether that would be a complete change or just closing up and doing something else, or who knows.
Is that an option? Is closing the bar an option?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be a pain in the ass, getting rid of all these games. But yeah, if I had to, like, oh man, it's really depressing. But my plan B would be to go back to teaching, which is something I swore I'd never do because I hate it so much. Or if I would more move to California and do podcasting full time with a friend of mine. I'd live like a bum for a while, set up a Patreon, be one of those guys. That kind of sounds fun to me. But yeah, if I had to, I would probably have to close up, and that would be a bad situation for a lot of people. We formed a little community here. I've made all my friends here. I haven't had like friends in Japan for the first 9 years I was here. It was like I had a couple of coworkers. Sometimes we would hang out and have a beer, and now it's like I see people that I love every day, and it's the greatest job I've ever had. And it would suck to have to leave that, but I mean, if the government wants to step in and say that I can't run my business the way they want to run my business, then I have no choice.
Why do you think game bars have been a thing in Japan up until now, but not really in other countries until fairly recently, where we've seen, in the UK and America, we've seen all these sort of bars pop up that are gaming focused, or like bar arcades that are popping up, especially around California. Why is that sort of only happening now there, and now here we have this change where these traditional places are getting shut down and stuff?
I think the video game bar. First of all, Japan has a rich culture of themed bars and cafes. Like they're all over the place. There's a cat cafe. There's an AKB cafe. There's a phlebotomist cafe. Whatever your thing is. Like there is an establishment for you. And video games sprung up a couple decades ago, sort of in that vein. Here's a specialty thing. And I think one of the reasons that video game bars like this work in Japan is because, to put it bluntly, Japanese society is just more polite than Western society. And they're not gonna do dumb things like drop a beer on your Super Famicom or steal your Dr. Mario. Whereas if you were to open this place in America, I would have to watch out for my things getting stolen all the time, I bet. And I'm real funny about the word barcade for some reason. I just think it sounds dumb. Oh, sorry. But I think that the reason that places in America sort of tend to do like arcade cabinets is because those are considerably harder to steal covertly. There are some places in America and in the West that do have, they're kind of like this. They've got individual, cartridges and things. And yeah, it's a thing, like all things from Japan. It's going to take a while to catch on in the West, but it certainly has now. And I think because of that, a lot of the patrons of the overseas establishments are kind of dismayed by this news out of Japan that now these places are being shut down, and it's sad for people who are into games and gaming culture.
Additional comments from Matt?
Yeah, I want to say it's a shame this is happening, and I and a lot of business owners in my situation are feeling very helpless right now. And as far as I know, there's no real sort of collective or coalition or union or anything. And I kind of feel like we should be joining together to fight this. If you know of any such thing, I've been researching this. I've not found anything. If anybody knows anything that's happening right now, if any of these video game bar owners are getting together and talking about legal defense or things like that, I want in. I want to be a part of it. I want to help out. I will give money. I will give time. I'll give whatever it takes, because these places cannot go away. And not just because this is my livelihood, but because they're fun places to be. I basically lived in Genesis, the video game bar in Ichinomiya, for a couple of years, and that guy, it was a great place. When I had no friends, I had no place to hang out. I can always talk to this dude with the Sonic T-shirt and the lip piercing, and I play Rockman 4, and I feel great. I think people need places like that. And yeah, if anyone knows of any efforts in Japan that are happening right now, please let me know, because I'm down. I want to keep these places around. That's it.
Do you think that's a possibility, like to start like a union for not specifically game bars, but themed bars? Because it seems like this is a problem that could outstretch to other themed bars as well, that especially play like music or art or something like that.
I think music is not too dangerous, because the governmental agency Jazz Rack handles that. And it's cheap. It's like 5,000 yen a month. You get the rights to any Japanese song you want. But yeah, I could very easily see other companies, looking at Nintendo's example and then cracking down on, hey, you got a Dragon Ball bar. You can't show Dragon Ball there. Get out of here. I don't like it at all. I'm not against the concept of copyright enforcement. I just think it should be easier. There should be a way to do this, because if I've poured over the ACCS's website. There's no method. There's no walkthrough for how to pay for the rights to something, how to license Super Mario Kart. It's just articles, and here's a list of dudes we busted. It's really depressing. If there's a legal way to do this, like, I'm down with paying $1,000, $2,000 a year to license the rights to all of these. That's totally fine. I'm totally for copyright enforcement, just not in this insane draconian way that only Nintendo seems to understand. And I think if other companies do see this example, yeah, they could start cracking down on other kinds of themed bars as well, right? Big Cat is going to come for your cat cafes. I'm calling it now.